Have you ever heard of wrong site surgeries? Don't worry, I hadn't either. It turns out this describes the mistake of a surgeon cutting off the incorrect limb from a patient. It is actually so frequent that they created a cute PR-friendly name for it. Wrong site surgeries. This seems like it would be kind of rare though, right? But approximately 1 in 10,000 operations result in wrong site operations. You might think that doesn't sound too terrible. A 0.0001% chance of having the wrong limb cut off. Maybe them's just the risks of doing business, but here's the thing. Numbers are a little bit tricky. If we take a little bit of a different look at those numbers, we can see that wrong site surgeries occur at a rate of 40 to 60 per... How frequent do you think? Give me a guess. Write it in the comments. Every month? Each quarter? Every year? Nope. Every single week. Now, you might be thinking, what in the world are we doing here? Why are you talking about wrong site surgeries, Matt? I thought you were like the resilience guy and the connected leadership guy. What am I getting at? So what is the point? Today, and for that matter, the next few weeks, they're all going to be about communication. Poor communication costs businesses $37 billion every single year in the US alone. If you're in corporate America, listen up, because you're losing an average of $62 million per year. And also, yes, looking at you, small business over there with your chin held up high, you're losing nearly $500,000 every year. It turns out ineffective communication actually impacts every single sector, every single industry, all of the corporations, all of the small businesses. Why? Well, because it turns out businesses are made up out of people. And people have to rely on one another. Each person has their own team, their own set of responsibilities, and thus, they have to rely on other people and individuals and other teams in order to operate effectively in their respective lanes so that they can focus on their respective lanes. Now, the financial industry loses millions of dollars every year due to project delays and transaction errors. The same is true for tech companies. Have you ever heard of Google Wave or the Amazon Fire Phone? Yeah, maybe some of you probably know. Let me know. Let me know if you've ever heard of these things. Because before doing research for this episode, I think I might have heard of Amazon's Fire Phone. I definitely never heard of Google Wave, which is interesting. Because these are the two biggest companies in the world, and I've never heard of some of these really large projects that they were involved in, and not that long ago. Looking at Amazon first, the Fire Phone actually was a project that failed because Amazon's hardware and software teams failed to communicate. Go figure, right? That's kind of why we're talking about them. Communication problems. But they failed to communicate, creating such a disastrous user interface that they pulled the plug on the project within 1 year. How bad does the user interface have to be for you to pull the plug on an entire project where you've dropped a significant amount of money in 1 year? That's incredible. Now, Google Wave, similarly, was supposed to revolutionize, get this is so perfect. This is so perfect. Google Wave was supposed to revolutionize online communication. And how perfectly ironic that Google's Wave project, the project leaders for Google Wave, communicated the project's direction so poorly that they implemented a do not resuscitate, a DNR for that within 2 years of product launch. Now, we don't have the public disclosures, but estimates and posts, failure analysis that we are able to get through the public lens shows us that Google is estimated to have invested tens of millions of dollars into Wave, into this one project. That sounds like a lot of money, right? Well, just wait. Amazon is always there to one up everyone else. Amazon's investment into their Fire Phone ranged from like the smaller estimates. Again, we don't have official numbers on this. It's not publicly disclosed. But the small estimates where I was looking at said somewhere between like $150 to $170 million. Whoa. That's like a lot more than Google's Wave. And ironically, Google's Wave actually lasted 2 years and Amazon's Fire Phone only lasted 1. So maybe that says something. But additionally, there were other estimates that showed that Amazon's Fire Phone, that they invested almost around $500 million into this phone. And it just completely crashed and failed. So that was an interesting one, because the Fire Phone was actually a failure of communication between the two major teams of any sort of development. It was a failure between the software and the hardware teams, and so those two very important arms of this project, they weren't talking to each other. They were not communicating. And then that led to, our 1-year failure. So way to go. Big round of applause for Google and Amazon here. Very, very well done. Very great case studies and examples of the real impacts of communication failures, that even these really large organizations have these problems. They're still made up out of people. You're still communicating with other people, or, in their case, not. But this is the power of it. This is, we want to, breeze past this stuff and brush over it, because it seems like such a soft skill, non-important part of business, and we need to worry about dollars and cents and production and productivity. I'm like, well, it turns out all of that stuff revolves around communication, because everything we do is just people stuff. We're just people working with people, and the better that we work with each other, the more likely we are to not break the bank for no good reason. Ask Google and Amazon. But let's dive a little bit deeper behind the curtain to see what habits the companies who fail to communicate effectively with their employees, right? A different level. Like I said, we're going a little bit deeper. Now, a report by the Work Institute in 2018 showed that U.S. employers lost approximately billion dollars due to employee turnover. Yes, I can acknowledge that there are a lot of averages and estimations used to produce this number. But you know what? Let's do this. Let's chop it in half. Let's say that this number is 50% right. Then we're looking at over $300 billion, again, in 1 year, that was lost due to employee attrition. That's a lot of dough. That's a lot of money. And so, but here's the thing. So the general rule of thumb that here for replacing employees is that employers should expect to invest, about 1/3 of an employee's salary to get back to pre-quit level of productivity. I know you out there that are paying attention. I got you. Don't think I'm going to leave out other variables that are very important here. You can also acknowledge that not all employee attrition is based on poor communication, right? So like some people just quit because they got an offer for another job that maybe pays them more. Maybe they're switching industry and they're even willing to take a pay cut. But here's the thing. There are a lot of opportunities out there. There are a lot of people that leave their job but stay within the industry. That says something. Even there are people that choose to stay with their employers even though they're getting paid a little bit less, because they appreciate the culture there so much that they don't want to risk having this peaceful life, this positive balance in their life with, getting a few extra $1,000s a year. So the pay's got to be significant if you're going to break somebody out of a comfortable and productive culture. So from here, like, what's a reasonable percentage from our current running total to account for the amount of jobs, like the percentage of people from those who are quitting to people that are quitting because of communication failures. And now you can think about communication failures just like these small little cuts that happen over time. It's not like, you didn't tell me the project was due, I quit. Like it's not that. It's like the little things over and over again. It's the lack of trust. It's all of these things that build up that pave the road to quitting. And so that's why it's hard to calculate this number specifically. But let's be super fair. Let's undershoot this like crazy and let's say 10%. And that's not true. There's no way it's 10%. But let's just say it's 10%. That leaves us with just the tiny pittance of $30 billion that companies are forking over each year due to completely unnecessary quits that are solely tied to poor communication, to the fact that you suck at talking. Let's be real. Let's be real. This isn't rocket science. There's nothing I'm going to share with you guys today or over the next couple of weeks that is going to be revolutionary. It's reinforcing the basics. It's mastering those fundamentals. Again, with this number, I wanted you to remember this $30 billion a year that companies are blowing for no reason other than the fact that they're not taking the time to communicate and connect with their people. That's a lowballed estimate. That's 50%. We cut 50% off of the top for the amount of money that organizations are losing. And we went 90% below that halfway point to account for this. So even with that, we're still 30 billion. Let's go. I mean, the beautiful thing about that is that I don't even see this as a huge negative. Obviously it is. I don't see this as a huge negative because we can identify it. We can see it, and the actions that we can take to correct this aren't crazy. It's not like we have to spend another $30 billion to fix it. It's much more simple than that. Are we getting the picture here? Have I stuck this knife in deep enough and twisted it around to make it painful enough for you to really take this seriously? If you have, then let's dive in. Let's look at the next step with what we're talking. With all of these kind of case studies and examples of the negative fallout that we just discussed regarding ineffective communication, it is probably important to start the next part of this conversation off with what is effective communication, or what makes communication effective? Is effective communication like sharing calendar events? And is it having team meetings throughout the week with the different areas and teams within your organization? Is it conducting in-progress reviews? Maybe it's taking the time to clearly articulate the organization's values and principles and vision. You could even follow this up with, what's the mission statement? What backs up this vision? What steps are we taking? What actions does this organization take that will ultimately result in that vision becoming a reality? All of these different things are actually forms of effective communication. This style and this approach to communication, this is the proactive, leader-driven, transmission-oriented parts of communication. And for you, for you military leaders out there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I am in transmit mode. You are in receive mode. Like, this is something we would say to soldiers when we wanted them to be quiet and to take in information without wanting to respond back. You're in receive mode. We're transmitting. So here are some key principles to this leader-driven, transmission-oriented portion of communication. I want to talk about some of the key principles or some of the key considerations that you want to make when you are embarking in this type of communication. And like I said, I'm not saying that this is a bad type of communication. It's absolutely required. You have to do this. But how we do it is pretty important. It makes a pretty big difference in the impact within our organizations. We don't want to cut off the wrong limb, right? Like, we don't want wrong site surgeries inside of our organization. So let's start it off. Clarity. Let's stick with this concept that we were just talking about with vision statements, because this is the initial impression that your organization is having with both the employees and with your current client base and with your prospects, your future client base. If the vision for the company, for our company, is we want to be the best company in the world, what do you think? How do you think that sounds for a vision statement? That's like motivating, and you get somebody and they're like, we're going to be the best. What does it mean to be the best? There's a lot of gray space there. There's a lot of lack of clarity in what it means to be the best. What rating scale, what measurement are we using? What does that actually mean? If you are the best company in the world, does that mean that you're comparing yourself through metrics that we don't understand to every single other company on the face of the planet, even those outside of your niche and industry? You see how clarity is getting pretty important? And this is just with a vision statement. This isn't even like directly with your employees or with your clients. This is kind of indirect most of the time. So clarity is supremely important, right? It's the difference between nice generalized platitudes and real impact, right? So compare this generalized crap version statement that we just talked about, we want to be the best in the world, to this one. The vision statement is to empower individuals and organizations around the world with innovative, user-friendly technology that transforms the way they live and work and interact. That's better, right? This is much more specific. We have functional areas that can be measured, that can be assessed in our performance towards them. To me, this is still a bit grandiose. It's pretty far reaching, which is not bad. Like, you want your vision statement to be kind of big and impactful, and that's good. And then your mission statement's kind of like how you drive that home. But perhaps you're not looking for a global impact. So I want to make sure that we're talking to small businesses too. And by that, I don't mean like small businesses can't have huge impact. Like, they absolutely can. I think most large businesses started off as small businesses, but some small businesses don't want that. They don't want to extend themselves. They don't want to scale. They want to do good things for the people around them and support their community and support their families and provide value and products. And that's great. I think that's beautiful. So maybe you want to have the same vision, right? The same one that we were just talking about, but instead of for people around the world, we say for children grades K through 12 within your district, right? This is perfect. And dare I say, even more powerful of a vision statement because of the increased specificity around your target audience. Like, you're getting real clear about not even target audience as much as like the target impact, because it's not like you are trying to sell. You're not your target customer. It's not like you're trying to sell K through 12-year-olds on this. It's most likely you're trying to sell the school districts and the state government and the city and council and all that stuff. And that's huge, but it's making that type of impact that you want to make very clear. That's something to consider. It's something to think about. Now, another important concept within this transmission-oriented style of communication is timeliness, right? So sticking within the framework of a vision statement like we were just talking about, at what point would it be most important, do you think, to communicate your vision statement with your employees, right? When we're thinking about timeliness, when you want to communicate that vision statement with your employees, what is the optimal time? What do you think? Give me a comment. Let's hear it. Let's see. I think it's before you're even interviewing them. So not during the indoctrination, not during the in-processing and all of that, not even during the interview. It should be before that. Because here's the thing, your top tier employees, half the time they're going to be customers. Half the time they're going to be familiar with people that already work there. And even if they're not, those high performers are going to be checking out that website. They're going to be checking out your social media to see what you're all about, and they want to see what your vision is. Like, do they want to be a part of your vision? Your organization's website should clearly state what this vision is. That's a great place for it. This should also be expressed through the actions and that are shared on social media, through the pictures and videos that your company's taking and the impact that you're having. That's where they can see the actions of these, like the kind of the mission statement side of it. So, but here's the thing. I want to take a step back from the vision statement and when we're looking at the timeliness of communication, right? Timeliness of communication is what makes communication relevant. Think about it. Think about the surgeon's wrong side surgery issue we discussed at the top of the show, right? Sure would have been nice to have communicated about the right site surgery several times leading up to this event, and perhaps, even immediately before the surgery took place, maybe last confirmation. The same goes for Amazon's Fire Phone. An after action review is what, that they conducted was actually what revealed that the poor communication between the software and the hardware teams. Having thoughtful connections between the teams with timely integration meetings seems kind of obvious for any project, right? Probably pretty obvious to the most successful organizations of the world. They've probably done this a few times, but apparently not. Apparently it's not standard. Maybe it's one of those assumed like, oh yeah, they're going to set it up. Oh yeah, they're going to set it up. And oh, they didn't. And oh, we're kind of talking about this, but I don't know. Things just get weird. Communication with people gets weird. You got to plan it. And, timeliness and clarity are critical to effective communication. But here's the thing. What happens if you and other leaders are all being timely and you're all being super clear, but you're all conveying different messages? Shoot, let's own it. What if you all by yourself, what if you're conveying different priorities and principles and even perhaps different values depending on the day of the week, right? Are you conveying those same principles on Friday that you are on Monday? How much does your emotional mindset impact the type of principles that you're living out within the organization? It's a real thing. People change. Like, we have emotional reactions, we have stress, life happens, but the thing is, you have to consider what kind of message is this sending to your team and your organization. It undervalues the core principles of the organization. And that can sound like some corporate speak crap. But this is what it really does, is it breaks down trust because it disassociates the individuals with the organization. Because if they're not associated with the vision, then they're not associated with the organization. And for them, that just turns your business into another job. So what's to stop them from looking for another job if it just pays a little bit more? A shared vision is only powerful when everyone believes in it. Consistent messaging with clear and reliable actions. These are the things that produce a meaningful outcome, and time again, it's the only way to generate true belief. Here's another interesting component of communication. Being purpose-oriented, right? You might be saying to yourself, obviously, duh. Like, of course, all of my communication is purpose-oriented. I don't speak without a reason. And so, next. But give me a second, bear with me. I tell, you might be thinking, I tell the team what the project is, we assign roles, get to work, we set up in-progress assessments where I give further guidance. And honestly, this is good. Truly, I'm not even looking to insert a but here. However, see what I did there? But really, I want you to look at the unofficial, non-black and white instances of communication. Now, these are those 15 minutes before you really get into work, right? When you get into the office, you're filling up your cup of coffee, and no one's gone into full productivity mode yet. Those moments, the lunch breaks that you can take together, that you can choose to take the team out to, or take a couple of people out to that you want to talk with, the 5-10 minutes before, after meetings that you have set, what are you talking to the team about? What are they saying? Are you paying attention? Are you seeking opportunities to learn more about your team as people, from a 360-degree whole person perspective? This gray space between the lines of standard communication is going to be a recurring theme that we discuss over the next few weeks during our conversations about effective communication. Why this focus? Because this is where connections happen. When we connect with one another on a human level, we expand that into collective actions. And don't get me wrong, there's something whenever I say collective, or when I hear collective, I'm like, ooh, kind of makes me chill a little bit. Some of you got real hyped up, and that's great. And some of you had similar reactions as me. That's okay. Bear with me. Let's just stay tactical with this. When we connect with one another on a human level, we expand that into collective actions, via a common goal. We get the best performance. We get the highest workplace satisfaction. And yes, indeed, we get the lowest attrition rates. That said, the transmission-oriented, leader-driven style of communication doesn't really extend itself very well into this space. Even when we're perfectly attending to the principles that we discuss, clarity, timeliness, purpose-oriented communication, consistency, connected leadership requires a different model of communication. If this makes sense to you and you want to learn more about this model of communication, check out the next episode in the communication block of connected leadership that you can only find right here on The Real Resilience Show. Thanks for coming, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.